I guess we are kind of in 2021 hoping the pandemic goes over because we all really fed up with it. But one of the good things of the pandemic actually is that it allowed us or forced us or motivated us to give the special interest groups a lot more space to talk about the work they've been doing. So there is a few positive things that have come out of this. And one of them really is that we now all get to see what awesome work the SIGs do. And personally, I always was under the impression that FIRST is a volunteer-driven organizations, but we don't really showcase our volunteers very much. So, and in particular, if you take the metric SIG, that was the first SIG I joined. It's been around for much longer, and I still remember when we had the meeting in Boston that I joined. That seemed like a very, very long time ago, and it's still going, and it's going strong. And that I think is what makes FIRST different from a lot of the other security organizations. And that's really, I think, thanks to all the participants, and in particular the chairs of the SIG. So really thanks a lot, folks, for investing the time and the continuity and stay on this, even if it sometimes seems to take a long stretch. I'm still supposed to talk for 13 minutes. I don't really know what to say. I think we just start. Or shall we wait till 15?
Okay, we can go ahead and get started with our metrics CSERT if you would like us to.
Sounds good. I'll monitor if we're going to have a lot more participants, and then we may rewind, but otherwise I would suggest we just go for it.
Let me out. Okay.
Sorry, we good? Good, Logan?
Is that Mike? Can you see?
Yeah.
Everybody see okay?
Can see. Sorry, guys. Go ahead to the first slide, Robin. So there we go. Thanks. So my name is Mike Murray. I'm one of the co-chairs of the metric SIG, along with Robin Ruffel here. As Serge mentioned, this SIG goes way back, and honestly, I don't even care to admit at this point how long I think I've been one of the co-chairs of this SIG. But I will say, to Serge's point, that this has been an exciting time for the metric SIG. We'll get into some of the details later, but really over the last couple of years, we've seen, I think, a substantial transformation in this SIG, primarily from a birds of a feather kind of sharing conversational SIG to one where there's actually development going on. And Logan will give some updates kind of on where those efforts are along the way. So lots of exciting and very important and pertinent work going on. And thanks a lot to those folks participating in all of the different work streams. For those that aren't familiar, this is some snippets from the charter for our special interest group. And really, it's about measurement, right? This is all about how we measure CSERT processes and how we use those to justify changes, resourcing, etc. Those have been sort of the topics over the years. We don't get into accrediting, certifying, or evaluating other organizations. It's really meant to provide tools to the interested groups of things that exist, as well as bring the community together to talk about what doesn't exist and how we may be able to develop things that are mutually beneficial there. Next slide. As I mentioned, there have been two main areas of activity really in the last couple of years, the second one picking up here. So historically, we've always been sort of a collaboration point, a forum for exchange of information and ideas and articles and webinars and all of those things. We continue to do those as the opportunity presents itself. But also, again, there's been an effort to create effectively a sub-working group where folks that are able to enter into the IPR contract are able to work together to develop and define metrics. And again, very, very exciting and interesting work and strong contributions from those folks. With that, I'll hand over from the introduction to Robin to talk about some of the recent accomplishments.
Thanks, Mike. And hello, everyone. As Mike said, I'm Robin Ruppel from the CERT-CC at the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon University. And I'm one of the co-chairs of the Metrics SIG with Mike. And so just over the past 2 years, just wanted to kind of go over some of the things that we've accomplished. And a lot of that work is from the subgroup, and that's what Logan will be talking about when we finish kind of this high-level overview of the metric SIG. But so we have started over the years, we've done different series of webinars on different topics. In fact, Logan was one of the people that presented for us, as Carson Zimmerman did. And you can see those that were able to be publicly published. There's a link if you want to look at some of the webinars that we did. We also, and this was the work that Logan's going to talk about, did this development of time to metrics. And there was we started out in Edinburgh with development of 2 subgroups, one of time to metrics to do a deep dive into time to metrics that flourished. Came up with a good amount of information that you'll see, and we've had various presentations about that. And then also there was a categorization of metric subgroup. Now we decided to combine the 2 because pretty much the same people were on the subgroup, and we're certainly looking for more people to work on those subgroups. Just let us know. Logan will talk about some of the future work that is coming up. But we're going to kind of focus on calling it more like guidelines that are being developed for metrics. So we'll look more at the time too, but also look at other types of metrics. We developed a repository for the metrics articles or resources on the first wiki pages for our SIG, and that has some old articles, but we really have not populated that a lot, and we do want to work on that. We've had a couple different information exchanges in this in 2021. We had an exchange with a private group that's looking at establishing a metrics methodology. That was led by Freddie de Jure, who was formerly from the EU CSERT. And so we're going to look at doing some continuation of those exchanges. They're finalizing their ideas, and then we'll try to get together after June or July. We also, Mike worked on the coordination of a joint cyber insurance metric SIG member discussion regarding ransomware and insurance triggers. And we're looking at different ways that we might be able to collaborate these 2 communities. So those are some of the things that we accomplished in the past few years. Some of the activities we have coming up for over the next few years, we want to hold a full metric SIG members virtual call. We want to have kind of a repeat of the discussions we had in Edinburgh, where we really looked at what we wanted to focus on, the kind of work we wanted to do, where we looked at going more from it just exchanging information ideas to actually developing some things. So we'd like to talk about what kind of future ideas, do we need any additional subgroups? And we're looking at doing that sometime in either July or September. So if you are a metric SIG member, you'll be seeing some type of a invitation coming for that meeting over the next couple months. As I mentioned, we want to populate the metrics repository, and we also want to start to get a new set of webinars because those were very successful. And we look for recommendations of speakers. We look for, even if someone's heard a speaker at a different venue outside of FIRST, or sometimes even a FIRST, maybe a FIRST presentation that wasn't really widely presented. So if you have ideas or topics that you'd like to see covered, can't guarantee them, but certainly send them our way. There is a work that's going on in the subgroup to develop a kind of standard or guideline on the time to metrics. And then we also want to do some work on the categorization framework and catalog for metrics that are related to incident management and security operations. So those are some of the things that are on our agenda for the next few years. So I'm going to turn this over now to Logan Wilkins, and he's going to talk about some of the work that the subgroup has been doing. And you can see that the subgroup has been, there are multiple co-chairs that have been guiding this work and really doing the majority of the work to get the time to metrics and the next steps done. So Logan, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Robin, and Mike and Serge. This is great. We have, I'm looking over at the number of attendees, so it's a small kind of group, and so we can keep it informal if you like. I'll be watching the chat. If you have any questions while I'm talking, please, we can certainly address them as you like. So Robin gave a good introduction on the subgroup, and I'm gonna elaborate a little bit more on that. When we met in Edinburgh in 2019, I guess it was last time we were able to get together in person. We had quite a lot of excitement in the room and people interested in what can we do to establish something, really tangible and output from this group, and how can we establish something that people can, put their hands on and use in their everyday work when they're trying to figure out how to measure CSIRT work. So we decided at that time that what we needed to do was just have some working groups that were meeting on a regular basis and that would address, kind of come up with these guidelines or frameworks or whatever that output looked like. We've been doing that for the past couple of years. At that point, we decided to do, as Robin mentioned, 2 subgroups. One was to focus on timing. The idea there is that timing metrics are kind of something that we could wrap our head around pretty easily, right? We have a start of an incident, the end of an incident. What happens in between can be difficult, complicated, of course, but we really, it was something that it wasn't too big for us to be able to attack and try to solve that problem. The other working group that we proposed, as Robin was talking about, was categorization in a broader set. Over time, those 2 groups merged and became one. So we focused on the timing and spent most of our work there. This subgroup work, it takes time where everybody's doing it mostly in their free time. And those of you that have done this sort of work know that it takes a long time. You try to meet every couple of weeks, and because calendars are difficult, you might even miss and only meet once a month. Try to have working meetings and go on, but so it takes a while. During the past few years, we were able to get a good bead on the timing metrics, and we have an idea of where we want to go forward with that second broader set, and I'll speak to those 2. This slide, it's what we all know, and I just want to speak in general about this. Is kind of pertains to the metrics subgroup or the metrics SIG overall. It's one thing to do incident security, computer security, but we also need to be able to show that we're doing it well. We need to be able to measure how well are we doing and how efficiently are we doing it. The idea of metrics can be dry to some people, but it can also be super exciting when you know that you're applying these ideas to constantly get better and constantly show others how you're doing and how well you're doing, and understand within your organization where you need to improve. So we want to be able to look at efficacy across the board for your response, how well you're detecting all of your services. I come from an engineering team, so we have a number of metrics that we apply directly to our engineering log measurement. So what's the uptime for our deployed devices, for example. We also want to be able to understand, get a common taxonomy, so we can say what is best in class, right? How do we, as an organization, compare to other organizations, and how can we get together and speak a common language to be able to say, this is how we're addressing it, this is how we measure our activities, and when people do it the same way, we can kind of, I don't want to say compete, but compare and say, oh, here's an area that we can improve, and here's what you've done in this area, and have that ability to speak about best in class. then finally, when we developed these metrics, we didn't want to just do it in a vacuum. And I'm going to speak a little bit more to this at the end of the timing. But what we wanted to be able to do is align it and say, okay, this has, this connects somewhere. So we can go to an established framework, something that an industry standard that people are already using, adopting, that they rely on, and say, this is how you can use the metrics categories that we're developing to align to that framework that you already have. And you can see 3 of them listed there. I'll speak a bit more to this later on. I'll just take a quick breath, see if there's any questions or comments. Probably not.
Nothing.
Yep. Let's just move on. We'll start with the timing. If you can advance the slide. Thank you. This material has been presented once. We have some time here, so I'll speak to it maybe a little more than I was planning to, but I think it's already been presented once, and Robin, you can let me know maybe in the comments. I think that was probably recorded. The timing standard, again, as I mentioned earlier, it was something we could wrap our heads around from the start of an incident to the end of an incident. And we could look at what is the timeline of a security incident and what are the periods on there. If we think about a period, right, we have a start and an end of that period, and that's something that we would want to measure. And then we would have a set of events along that timeline that would establish those periods. So you can see the definitions there. We start with time of first activity, when we detect it, several other things. I'm not going to read them all and go through all this, right? But the idea is that we can take, something such as, we'll just take time of first activity to time of detection, right? So those 2 events on the incident timeline, you measure in between them, and you get your detection times. Quite simple, right? But then you have that detection time, and you can begin to use that, or time to detect, right? You can begin to use that metric itself and begin to apply statistics to it. What is your mean? What is your mode? What's the median? How does it compare? What's your path over time? Say over the past year, for categories of incidents, for business units in your area, targeted clients, whatever that might be, right? And so you can establish that. That concept is pretty straightforward, right? The idea that we had as the metrics, as the timing subgroup, was to extend that. What are all of the different points that we might need to be able to measure? And often they go between groups. And so I'm going to take another example here, and something that is interesting right now to me at Cisco is this time of notification. So we look at the 3rd bullet here. Time of notification is not something that we have worried about a lot at Cisco. As an internal CSIRT group, we have an incident, we have an event that we're following up on, we detect it, and then what we really care about for us, right, is when do we contain it? So we kind of jump ahead to this time of contain. It turns out that we are doing within Cisco more and more work for internal business units, and so we are discovering an event or an incident that we're following up on. This business unit that we're working with, they want to be notified, and they want to know, how fast are you going to notify me when you find something, and how well are you doing against that established SLA? So just now, we are seeing an increased importance of this time to notification. It was handy for me because, again, maybe it seems straightforward, but this was right here in our timeline, and I could go back to the work that the timing group had done and say, well, we've already established this as a guideline within FIRST, and we have it on our timeline. This is how we'll define it, how we'll measure it, and go on from there. And I suspect that other parts of this could be, if your organization is not particularly interested in time of notification, you might be particularly interested in maybe a variation or the timing between, say, time of first response and time of remediation. So you can pick any of these events on the incident timeline, establish the difference in between them, and then go against a measurement there. The metric, the timing subgroup. Also, let's just go on to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. That's the introduction to the timeline. Right. So again, you can see some of these levels here that we define: time of first activity, time of detection, right? That I've spoken to. The idea here is that we have defined some of them that we think are kind of more important for the work that we've been doing, right? So I talked about time to detect, for example, time of containment. So again, you can see here the application level, time of detection. We recommend that you do that for all of your instances, right? Time of closure is something that you would apply to all of your instances. So when did we wrap up all the work on this and complete the work that we were doing? So I'll kind of let you look at this for just a second. I see there's a question too, and I'm just going to take a look at this, Sean. Okay, so the question is, and I think everybody can read it here, are you seeing anyone that's really looking at time of detection to review how long they were at risk? I'll tell you honestly, yes, actually. I'm trying to think of the conversations I've had with the different Cisco customers. It tends to be the people in the industry that I'll have communication with. A lot of people are very interested in time to detect, right? And it does give that that sense of how long you're at risk. I would say also this idea of risk of an incident goes all the way through to time to containment. So for me, when we're thinking about, and I'd like to hear your responses too. I don't know if we can unmute attendees and how we do that. But when we think about the risk that we're facing, it goes from that first activity to containment time, right? And when are you no longer at risk as defined by containment? But time of detection for us, a lot of times that can be a measure of how efficient our organization is, because for containment, we may hand off the mitigation and containment activities to another group. An example at Cisco is that we have labs that are running many, tens of thousands of different lab machines and lab hosts. And when we see an incident on a lab host, we are reliant on our lab manager to go, or the lab admin in this case, to go over and establish containment on the machine. So we have mechanisms, so we can do it through. Often we can do this through a black hole event, but we don't want to do that unless it's something that's a very high risk. Yeah, and if you want to unmute, Sean, if you want to elaborate on this, I think you can unmute and raise hand. So, hope that helped. So yes, I definitely see interest in time of detection. Have done several presentations with customers that show how we standardize this and how we use Tableau for our business intelligence and the Tableau charts and graphs that we use there. So I hope that helps. Any other questions on this slide? This is really kind of what I talked about on the previous slide, really just some of these timelines and the application level there. Again, for your work, you can use any one that you want. This idea of time of notification, you don't see it listed on this slide in the table, but it's becoming something that I'm going to be accountable to really internal clients as a CSIRT organization. That will be important for me to establish that and be able to present that through our Tableau dashboard. Let's go on. You're welcome, Sean. Okay. Yeah. So that was kind of quick on timing. So again, we have a little bit of time to talk more about that if there is any interest. And also, just for folks on the call, anybody on the metric subgroup or Robin and Mike, we're all available to talk more about this. And as Robin had talked about, go into either additional webinars. I'm certainly, always willing to do that and talk about the work that we've done at Cisco. So I talked a little bit about the two subgroups that we have working on, or that we have working on the metrics. The second one, as I said, morphed into, they morphed from two into one, just by virtue of the people doing the work, kind of all the same people there that were interested in this and extending these guidelines. Having completed most of what we want to do, right? There's some wrapping up, finishing up with the timing metrics and continuing to socialize it and probably work on that more. But having finished the bulk of what we want to do there, we wanted to move on to this broader set. I'll tell you honestly, in this case, it went kind of slowly. We had a transition period from, all right, we finished our timing. What do we want to do now? How do we want to attack this next problem? some people have, came up with really good ideas of sets of metrics, a lot of work. The issue is, how do we take that work and form it into something that we want to do, something that we can really make tangible and extend on? Because, if we work with metrics, it just goes, it's a vast area. And people, including Carson that we've mentioned here, or at least his name is on one of the slides, and other folks have done, besides numerous presentations, I mean, there's huge books on the subject. But so what we wanted to do is be able to distill this information into something maybe kind of more usable as a tangible set of guidelines. We established metrics. We did what I'll call, I guess we'll call it, I don't know whether we'd want to call it top down or bottom up, but we kind of said, all right, what are all the metrics that we have? And we categorized them, and we worked on that. And we have that as artifacts that we've worked on, and a couple of different spreadsheets where we've been managing this. Then we looked at, okay, how do we map these to standards? That's what we wanted to do, is take what we had and map it into a standard. And we evaluated a couple of options, right? So we looked at NIST, cybersecurity framework, or we looked at SOC CMM. So we wanted to, we looked at this, and what we had hoped to do was kind of get some industry experts in this and have them review our work, map it against the frameworks that were there. That idea didn't pan out in the way that we wanted it to. That's not to say we can't still do that, and we might. But in the end, we decided that what we would do is just stay closer to home. And there's a very nice first CSIRT services framework. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Right there up on the first portal, and the link is in these slides. So what we have done is kind of come top down from the CSIRT service framework, and begin to say, all right, here are the different services, subservices, category areas of that. And the next slide has a little bit of examples on this. Here are these areas, and what metrics, how do we take, what's the objective of that area? And then how do we measure it? It's very straightforward, easy way for us to, I say easy. I'm responsible for some of the, looking at some of the subsections there, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, gosh, how do we measure this? It's kind of tricky to figure out. So it will take some time to do. But it's work that we're doing, we can almost do it line by line against the elements that are defined already in the CSIRT services framework. We can take those lines, look at the objective, and say, all right, given this objective, how would you measure it? How would you measure it in terms of efficacy? How would you measure it in terms of efficiency? Say what you would do to measure it. And then the second part of that is to establish, well, what elements do you need to have in place to establish those measurements? If you've been asked for work on measurements by external groups, or maybe clients that you work with, or any stakeholders in your organization, I will tell you that it's very common for people to come to me and say, hey, I need to know X, Y, and Z from your data, right? A set of measurements. And I said, well, that would be great if I had those points of reference within the data to be able to tell you X, Y, and Z. And quite often, I don't have those data points, so I can't establish any sort of metrics from them, because we haven't built the data in order to meet those metrics. So let's go on to the next slide, and I'll show a little bit more of what I'm talking about. And I'm going to work from the right-hand side over. There's not a lot of detail on the next slide, right? Because we don't have a lot. I'm sorry. You know what? I didn't include this in the slide. I'm so sorry. It became a real estate issue. I'm not going to work for the right over. Sorry about that. So I've just given a couple of examples here of the service areas. The dots at the bottom indicate that this goes on for a while. We have several different areas. In the CSIRT service framework, it starts at 5, so that's kind of where it does in the document. This is just, I included the numbers here for reference in the document itself. But we take the first service area that's listed as just around event management, and then the services under there, monitoring and detection, and then another one, event analysis. Under monitoring and detection, I listed just a couple of the sub-functions that are there: log and sensor management, and I'll continue on that one. So what is the outcome that you're looking for from your log and sensor management? It's listed there in the framework. It's a reliable stream of relevant information security events. So from your logs, from your sensors, from however you are collecting data and putting it into your SIM throughout your organization, your outcome is that you want it to be reliable, you want it to be relevant. All right, and essentially you have defined what security events and sources you're interested in, and you're
Did everybody lose audio or was it me?
No, I think same here.
We lost you, Logan.
Okay, Logan, I
So
think
while,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was going to say while Logan's seeing if he can rejoin, or I saw that Sean, you had a question that was outstanding. So we'll wait for Logan to be able to answer that because I don't think Mike or I had that answer. But are there any general questions about the work that's going on or about the metric SIG in general that we can answer for anyone? Or any topics that you'd want to bring up as far as ideas for webinars or other work that people might be interested in seeing the group pursue? One of the things I can give you a little bit of an update. I don't see any questions coming in. So one of the things I can give.
Sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Logan.
Oh, if you were in the middle, I don't want to interrupt, but you want to
Oh,
go ahead?
I was just going to. There was a draft version of the guidance that's being developed for the time too. So that folks may be hearing more about that in the future. But let me turn it back to you.
All right, thanks. I am so sorry, folks. I was before we started before everybody started the call, I was telling folks how I deliberately dialed into this meeting instead of using computer audio so that it would be reliable. I don't know what happened. It just disconnected. So hopefully that won't happen again. But I'll try to keep an eye on it. It could be this headset that I'm using. So really, I was just, you've had a chance to look at this slide, and I think you get the idea, right, without going through. So really, the idea is that we're working from the left over. We wanted to determine what it is that we want to measure, right? Outages, time to recover. There could be, the next one on your portfolio of detection use cases. This is what at Cisco we call our playbook. Other people call it content, whatever that is, right? There's a wide range of ideas or points that we measure within our playbook, right? So certainly with individual plays, you want to know how efficacious they are. Are you finding what you want to find, right? You can do that maybe a variety of different ways, but we have these ideas about what we want to measure there. The next column over, and I referred to it earlier, but I didn't include this slide, is again, what data points do you need to measure this? Right. So how do you know what your time to recover is? We already went over that, right? In a time to metric that's around incidents. In this case, it would be on your log devices, right? Time to recover just being really, from when the outage started to when the outage completed. Pretty simple there. But the same thing is what we will do as part of the working group is establish what are the data points that you need in order to conduct your measurements. So our next steps are to go through all of the CSIRT framework. kind of line by line. If you go into the framework, you'll see it. We've downloaded that into an Excel spreadsheet that we're using to work through, and we are just kind of hammering out, taking the metrics, the points that we had already established from the past several months, putting them in where we can, and also then we're finding gaps. So, okay, we didn't ever even talk about this. Maybe, maybe I don't know specific examples there, but it could be around cost metrics, for example, right? Or business continuity, and how do we measure that? So different ideas there. So I think that's it. What is our next slide? Yeah, it is. So I'll double check to see if there are any questions. I have to bring the chat window back up.
Logan, there is one in the question and answer from Sean about any plans to map against the PCERT framework.
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe now. I think that we talked about that, and we hadn't included that in explicit activities, but I think that we might well do that. We certainly have that. I would first look to see what level. I haven't looked at the PCERT frameworks, I have to tell you honestly. At Cisco, we have a whole separate PCERT organization. So when I just trying to concentrate my areas, I stay more on the CCERT area and away from the PCERT. But so I haven't looked at it, but I think that it would be a very good idea, and I'll take that back into the team and just see about that. So no explicit plans at the moment, but a great idea, and we'll just take a look and see what we do there. I would first look for overlap areas, right? So where do we see in those frameworks that they may be defined slightly differently, but there are similar events or similar activities or objectives, and see if we can reuse established metrics, but just under kind of a different flag, if you will. But yeah, thanks for that question. Anybody else? Okay, I do need to speak to the people that worked on this, and at the very beginning, Francesco Chiarini, he developed most of these slides. He had a conflict today, and so wasn't able to speak to this. So I'm speaking to this certainly on his behalf, and I want to give him due credit for his contributions in writing up several of the slides there. And then also for the work on the deep dive, Desiree Sacher-Baldwin, and excuse me for messing up pronunciation of foreign names, but Desiree has done an enormous amount of work and has a real passion for metrics. So she's done a great amount of work here as a contributor, and of course, Mark has done work as well in the team. So thanks to them. Several other members, and you see their names there, including our Mike and Robin. Paul and Carson have worked on this as well. So thanks to everybody that has been involved in this. And that's it for me. Oh, no, it's not. Robin, I'm so sorry. Because the slides. Can we go on to one more? I'm so sorry. We do have the slides. Remember, we put this in. Yeah. So I didn't know who was speaking to this, but if we can go back to that one slide about the survey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my apologies here. Yeah, if you don't mind going back in again. Yes, this will be delivered as part of the with this presentation, or you can, if you have a chance, to either screenshot or copy down the URL for folks on this. Really interested in how you use metrics. So there's some baseline and looking at the timing, particularly around the timing metrics, looking at which ones of those you currently use and how you use them and what else you might like to see. So we want to try to socialize this survey and allow people to have more input into this. It's just a way to that. I recognize that many people have survey fatigue. We get a lot of these, but if you would like to contribute, we would very much welcome your activity and your help there on the survey. So I did want to call that out and share that link, and it'll be part of the presentation. Thanks. Now it should be finished.
Great. Thanks. Thanks so much, Logan.
Oh, and Grace, thank you for posting that.
Any final question for anyone? All right, and here's the contact information for the three of us who spoke today. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. So thank you very much. Mike and Logan, it's always nice working with you two for the presentation. And Serge, we'll turn it back to you. I do want to say lots of thanks to Grace for all the help she gave us as we kept pestering her.
My pleasure.
Well, hey, so thanks a lot for the really interesting presentation. Kind of reminded me that I should probably get someone from my team to start looking into this, because I really feel our industry is still lacking a kind of measurable metrics and really good work. And I'd also like to echo thanks to Grace, who seems to be so invaluable to all the SIGs, and also to Kristen, who helps out here making all these webinars possible. Thanks a lot. I think with that, we're gonna reconvene in like kind of 10 minutes, 10 to the hour, for the first membership committee update. Talk to you. Have a nice morning, afternoon, evening, spring, fall, depending on where you are.
All right. Thanks, Serge.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Serge. Good to see you. I'm sorry, I really cannot put the first background because I'm joining from the browser only, so you have to deal with my bubbles.
I'm totally okay. It's
All right. Olivier, are you with us?
I don't see him.
He's in the let me see in the participants. I saw him. Attendees. He disappeared. He was there. Okay. He's here. Okay. Olivier?
Yeah, I was already in, but you couldn't hear me. That's why.
Yes. Now we can hear you.
Good.
Hi, Olivier.
Hi, Serge.
So let's try to put the slides on.
Yeah. So I'll be sharing them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Grace, can you open me the rights so I can share the screen, please?
You should be able to now.
Yeah, okay, good. That should be it.
Something happening. Yes, we are on.
Good.
So, Serge, the ordinary question, how is the weather in Switzerland?
Well, actually, right now it's sunny. It was really miserable, rainy tonight, and we still have tons of snow, but no one wants to come along skiing, sadly.
Oh, everybody's going to Greece.
Seems so. Actually, it has been a horrible May. I mean, it's really cold for this time of the year. It's kind of barely above 15. So,
Wow. I have to deal with a lot of sun, and I have to apply sunscreen for the last 2 months at least.
obviously, you need to have sunscreen if you go skiing. And but as I said, it's everything is green. It looks like summer, but it doesn't feel like summer.
So, I'm not sure if we have
One
to
more
wait.
minute.
Yeah, okay.
And okay, so let's start. So welcome everybody to the membership committee update. And it's kind of my pleasure to introduce the co-chairs, Andrea, who's the board liaison, Baiba, and Olivier, who are the two co-chairs of the membership committee. Remember, members is what FIRST is about. So this is actually one of our most important committees. The membership committee is not a special interest group. It's not a group that can just come and say, hey, we feel like doing X, Y, and Z. A committee in FIRST is a body, a group of people that are actually appointed by the board to help us achieve our goals. And so this is actually kind of slightly different. It typically involves some work that is given to you by someone else rather than you come up with it yourself, which is kind of a difference to the special interest groups. But the membership committee is really important. It helps drafting the guidelines of who becomes a member, who should become a first member. It was instrumental in creating the new guidelines that we will deploy as the organization grows. And it helps us with assessing applications of new members. Do they fit into FIRST? And like while FIRST is an open organization, it really wants to be inclusive and have as many members as possible from as many countries and backgrounds and stakeholders as possible, there's still not everybody can or should join FIRST. FIRST is about C-certs, P-certs, and security teams. It's not about just everyone who feels like security is cool that should be joining. And making that guidance or giving the guidance on how to decide that is not easy, and the membership committee is helping with that. So thanks a lot for all the work you put in. It's a lot of work. You always operate in the background, yet you actually one of the most instrumental and important committees that FIRST has. So thanks a lot for your work. And with that, I hand over the word to Andrea.
Thank you, Serge, very much. Hello to everybody from my side. My name is Andrea Ruvkova, and as Serge said, I'm the board liaison for the membership and the fellowship program, and basically the liaison for the membership committee work. And I would like to open our presentation today by introducing what we are going to talk about. I will share the presentation with Olivier, who is the chair of the membership committee. And I want to pass a warm greetings from Baiba Kashkina, who is the second co-chair of the membership committee, and apology that she couldn't join us today. So in our brief presentation, we will talk about what is the portfolio of the membership committee, what we have currently on our table, what we have achieved so far in the last couple of months, and what are also our plans for the rest of this year, also in outlook for 2022 for next year. And of course, that we would like to ask for your support at the end, where we open the floor for the questions and answers. So under the context, I would mention that membership committee oversees supports three main. I jump into the next slide. So context is what membership committee is doing. So membership committee is currently chaired by Baiba and Olivier, as I said. We have currently 17 members, and I'm very happy that we have coverage for most of the continents. And if anybody of you who is currently doesn't know about membership committee, what is our goal, what we want to achieve, please visit the public website, FIRST public website, a page where the committee is clearly described, or just pass a message to me or Olivier or Baiba if you have any specific question at the end. So we have regular meetings. We have like a monthly meeting, which lasts around 1 hour. And apart from these regular meetings, we also have sometimes ad hoc brainstorming sessions, topical sessions. So when we want to brainstorm on something new that pop-ups during the discussion. And normally we have between 6 to 12 participants for these monthly meetings. And the usual communication tools that most of you know, we are using the dedicated mailing lists. Also, we have a dedicated site either under the Amnesia portal. We use Zoom calls, and we have our dedicated Slack channel. So Olivier, next one. Thank you. So this is what I wanted to say before. So membership committee supports three main activities. That's the membership program. That's first one. Second one, it's a fellowship program. And the third one is Hall of Fame. So under the membership program, I think the most important activity in the last couple of months was the transition and the work on the new membership process. So transition between the old and the new process and the development of the new one. And what membership committee does regularly under the membership program is the review of teams and liaison applications, new applications. We usually have 5 to 10 new applications per month. Under the fellowship program, the membership committee supports the evaluation process of the new applications for the Suguru Yamaguchi program. And the same actually goes for the Hall of Fame, where membership committee supports the evaluation process and give their evaluation. So next one, please. And with this slide, I give floor to Olivier to walk you through details on the membership update. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. So indeed, this membership update is where we've been spending a lot of time over the last months. So the update of the team membership process and the site visits is a process that started in 2019. Most of the effort were done last year, and the validation took place at the board meeting in April this year. Once it will be published, there will be in parallel the current process and the new one for something like 6 months in order to enable teams to either work in parallel or to decide or to choose the best way to join the first community. And also for those who have already been starting the process, not to be confronted with a sudden change. So the work we've been doing, we've been having quite a few contributors, some lead writers such as Don Stigvert and myself. We got a lot of input from many MC volunteers, from BIBA, from Andrea, from Martin van der Heide, from Christine Hoopers, and many others. So the 4 main elements that we have to take into account here is regarding the integration of SIM3 to assess the maturity of a team. So, of course, I believe that thanks to the MOU or even before, you heard about the SIM3 maturity model. So that's the one that has been chosen. And we've been defining 11 monetary parameters that you're going to have to fulfill. I'm going to give a brief overview of that in a moment. 2 other noticeable elements is that there are some updated responsibilities for sponsors who must provide even more support, and also a new role for mentors that can come here and support the candidates in case there are some issues, problems, or questions. Next one is a brief overview of the new process. So you may think that it looks like the previous one, but there's been a few changes. First off, the little C on the left means that it's a candidate's activity. The S means that it's a sponsor activities. And of course, it starts by finding 2 sponsors, certificate, filling the application form, writing all that is needed. Then that's a first new element of interest is it's asked to the candidates team to perform a self-assessment using SIM3. So it can already provide some valuable input to the sponsor who will be performing the site visit. Then, of course, as usual, you fill in the support letters, the reports. You upload that on the first portal. Then it goes into the membership committee after it has been validated by the first secretariat. And then, if everything is going well, it goes through the usual process, is published to the first mailing list, gets some feedback, and if not, if everything is fine, then the board validates it, and then it's notified. What we've also been adding is, in case there are some issues, some additional requests, some potential problems, then we have added some mechanisms to check back what's going on and find a way to support the candidate and the sponsor into solving the gaps. So here is a few details, regarding the 11 parameters that I've been presenting. So you've got 6 of them, and as you can see, most of them are level 3, which means that you have to be quite mature on these topics. But of course, when it comes to the mandate of the team or the responsibility or the service description of a team, of course, you cannot expect less than a level 3, because a team has to be able to present and be very clear on its mission, responsibilities, constituencies, authorities, and mandate. So that's, I would say, an easy one. Then regarding the age parameters, of course, you've got to be it by the code of conduct or the ethics, discuss about resilience, and of course, external networking. Nothing regarding the tooling parameters. It's not required if you want to join the community. But you have 2 final parameters regarding the procedures. The first one is the ability to escalate to the governance level. And the last one is related, as you can see, to the process and the various types of activities. Regarding the membership updates, what are the next steps? Well, that's quite easy. Once we've been having the validation of the current document, we've got some back office work to perform, to design and to finalize the integration 3 evaluation tool and self-assessment tool into the first portal, start with the communication, and last but not least, perform some training regarding the process and regarding SIM3. Those of you that were present in Edinburgh 2 years ago may remember that on the previous Sunday before the conference, we've been doing some training regarding SIM3. That's something which lasted for a full day. What we want to do, what we want to achieve is a smaller and shorter process and shorter training so that most teams interested into sponsoring can undergo this training and be able to perform the task in a nice and efficient way. So stay tuned. You'll get some news regarding all that in the second part of the year. And another thing is after doing the work for the team membership, the next step is to work on the update for the liaison membership, which will be a streamlined process based compared to the team's membership process, and also work on the membership fee policy review. Second element is related to the fellowship updates. As Andrea said, it's something which is also quite important for us. The aim here is to integrate security companies, security teams that are in underrepresented countries or regions in order to extend the reach of the FIRST community to I would say worldwide. So every year we've got 2 new fellow teams that are vetted to join. And this year we have 2 of them, CERT RS from Republic of Srpska, that corresponds to .ba on the internet. So that's of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and MW CERT, which is a Gov CERT from Malawi in Africa. Second thing I'd like to mention, the need to adapt to the current situation and see how we can envision the future. It's not a secret that this year and last year were a bit difficult from a physical meeting standpoint, no first conferences, and this may represent an issue with fellows, and we've got tens of that nowadays, who couldn't join. So we've been trying to find ways, and we've been launching a subgroup, starting with brainstorming about it, in finding ways to improve the situation. So based on that, we've already been finding some activities to foster the integration within the community. And the second thing we've been doing is a month and a half ago, there were already first training and some exercises that took place in the form of a tabletop. But regarding training and exercises, that's one direction that could be well promoted in the future, based on the limited physical meeting possibilities, and also in any case to extend the reach of our activities. Final slide almost, the plans for 2020 and 2022. We've got quite a few things in the draft. So of course, providing support to the new membership process and to all the stakeholders, organizing the training exercises regarding the membership process and SIM3, that would be directed towards the sponsors, the fellows, and last but not least, the mentors. Updating the liaison membership process, as I already said, the membership fee policy review, and 2 other things, which will be to improve and continue improving the fellowship program, and paying much more effort on the communication for both the membership and the fellowship program. So this could take the form of blogs, of podcasts, of reports, to make the work of this membership committee more visible to everyone, and also to be more visible to potential fellows. As a conclusion, we need you. So of course, volunteers are always welcome. And as a co-chair, I would like to welcome you to join this membership committee, to be part of the change, to be able to support the committee, and also to provide some hints on which would be the best regional representative, and by that, enabling more fellows to join. So other activities would be based on coordinating and cooperating on the material, on the documentation, providing support. In some cases, the support can be just getting in touch with a sponsor or becoming a mentor based on your background. Maintaining an active fellowship program and community within FIRST. Here again, these fellows are, I would say, brand new to the community, so they need to get supported. And also, of course, encouraging and finding potential fellows and to become FIRST members. And that's it for me. Any questions and answer? No, nothing in the chat.
Not yet, Olivier.
One. Assuming you need
There
to
is
be.
Assuming you need to be a member first. That is not really a question. Sean, maybe you want to elaborate?
Yeah. Sean, go ahead.
Oh, hello. Sorry,
Yes.
I was just going to ask, I'm assuming that to participate in the membership committee, you need to be a member of FIRST and not just an outside volunteer.
So maybe to clarify, there really is a difference between SIGs, which are generally open to non-members, and committees, which are appointed by the board. So I don't think our bylaws say anything about membership, like that you need to be part of a member team or liaison to be in a committee. But to be in a committee, you technically are appointed by the board. Sometimes the board kind of delegates the responsibility for the membership to the co-chairs, but the chairs and co-chairs are always kind of approved by the board. So I think that's very, very important to notice if you go down into the technicalities of what a committee is. A committee is a body that is tasked by the board with a specific, to solve a specific problem. And it's the board who asks these people and says, yes, you're going to be part of it. Obviously, in most of the cases, volunteers are more than welcome, but technically you're all approved by the board.
Okay,
Any other questions?
So thank you for attending this presentation, and on behalf of Andrea, Baiba, and myself, hoping to see you soon at the next conference and to see you joining the MC to provide support. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much to all the membership committee, but also really Andrea and the two co-chairs for all the work you've been doing. It's again, thanks for Grace and Kristen to help us run these meetings. And so with that, we're going to have a short break and then go into the closed SIG update for the Threat Intel Coalition Special Interest Group. For all those who want to join us, enjoy the evening and talk to you soon, and hopefully in person at some stage this year. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day, everybody.